These are 20 team power conferences in College Football 26 Dynasty. So the Gaming Geklo commented the other day asking to do a video about a 20 team Big 10, Big 12, and SEC. And I figured, let's do that, but let's go all the way. Let's make all 4 current power conferences, including the ACC, 20 teams, and then figure it out from there and see what happens in College Football 26 Dynasty. So here is our ACC. We've added in James Madison, Notre Dame, of course, like we talked about. If we're going to add Notre Dame to a conference, they're going to go to ACC from now on, and UCF. That gets us to the full 20 teams for the ACC, including what they already have. For the Big 10, we added in 2 teams, San Diego State and Toledo. For the Big 12, we added in 4 teams, Boise State, Memphis, North Texas, and UNLV. For the SEC, we added in 4 teams as well, Louisiana Tech, Tulane, UAB, and Arkansas State were the 4 teams that we added in to the SEC. And so that is our power conferences. I also wanted to use this video to get other G5 teams in, right? Because we're at least going to have one G5 team get in every single season. So we made each of the G5 conferences have at least 8 teams. So the American gets pretty well cleaned out. I'm thinking that East Carolina is probably going to be the best team out of here, but we're definitely going to see some new teams in. I haven't seen Charlotte, and I've seen Navy in maybe 1 or 2 times. East Carolina, I've seen in 1 or 2 times. These other ones, maybe FAU before as well, but for the most part, we haven't seen these teams in the playoff very often. Conference USA, they also get cleaned out pretty well because we needed to kind of balance things out, and they have a lot of Western teams. Most of the balancing out goes to the Pac-12 and the Mountain West to kind of even those things out. So this is what the Conference USA looks like. FIU could very well be one of those sleeper teams. They end up being pretty good. Jacksonville State ends up being pretty good. And Missouri State we see coming up sometimes as well. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of Conference USA. The MAC, we took UNI and... or NIU, and Toledo out of the MAC, added in UConn. So we'll see what happens with the MAC. Miami of Ohio, I think, would be the favorite just based on rating early on, but the pretty even conference. Buffalo is also pretty good as well. We moved some of the teams over to the Mountain West, so we moved NIU and UTEP over to the Mountain West. We also moved some of the Mountain West teams to the Pac-12 to kind of make it like we usually want with the 2026. So Colorado State, Fresno State, and Texas State, as well as Utah State, all got moved over. The only one that didn't get moved over to the new Pac-12 would be Boise State and San Diego State. Boise State and San Diego State got moved up to power conferences, so they were replaced by UTSA and New Mexico State in the Pac-12. And then the Sun Belt, we didn't add anybody else in. We just removed some of the teams and took away the divisions. So we're going to play with Sam Houston. This is a crazy looking guy when you look at him for a little bit, the way that they got him rendered here in College Football 26. We're going to play with Sam Houston, do 3 years, best team, best conference, all the things that we usually do. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers before the end of the month. We're at like 120 away, less than 120 away. So we're really trying to get there. I'm basically monetized with my watch time at this point, fully monetized with my watch time at this point. I just need subscribers. So we're going to start doing some shorts and things like that to try to get out to some new people, but definitely let people know, share these videos so that we can get as many people into this channel as we can. People are definitely liking the videos. I know that you guys are liking the videos, so we want to get them out to a bunch of people. The more subscribers I get, the easier it is for me to make more and more of these videos and try out new things. So make sure that you're along for the ride. Other than that, we're going to sim to the first CFP. Man, I'm looking super orange with this screen. Okay, so not a great start. We're 3-4, I believe, for Sam Houston so far, but we do have some interesting things going on. Miami, Oklahoma, Clemson, those are not so interesting. Indiana, not even so interesting. BYU up at number 5 in the first year of his sim is interesting. We're going to get some of those crazy schedules where they're not playing any of the top teams in the conference because we've filled in with, I mean, really filler teams. They're all G5 teams that we put in besides Notre Dame going to the ACC. So we're going to see some crazy things. We'd also think that the ACC would have trouble, but we've seen over the past couple sims that the ACC is crazy strong with this current roster update. So we continue to see tons of ACC teams in the top 10 and 5 and 12. BYU is a weird one. LSU is also a weird one because they don't usually go up this high. Their only loss is, of course, to the ACC by 3 early on. But again, this is a conference game, non-conference game, conference game, non-conference game. So they have 5 non-conference games so far. No, 4 non-conference games. Clemson, Western Kentucky, FCS, and Maryland, and then they've only played one ranked conference game. Otherwise, they've played bottom feeder teams 2-7, 2-7, 2-6 for their conference games. So that's why you have a 7-1 LSU schedule, which is what we're going to get with these super packed power conferences. But they do have a crazy end to the season with. They just had the Texas A&M game. They've got 2 more top 15 games, and then a game against number 2 Oklahoma on the road, who's currently undefeated. We'll see if they're number 2 at that point. And then a Tennessee game, who very well could be ranked by that point as well. So we'll see if LSU is at the top towards the end. That is when I would project to drop. USC, Penn State, Iowa State, a little bit surprising. Again, let's look at this schedule. They got to win against Iowa. That's a regular conference game. Their loss is actually to UNLV, who's doing pretty well in the Big 12 in their first season. That's interesting to see that their loss is actually one of the filler teams in the conference. So we'll see how they close out. They did have quite a few. They have 3 power conference teams in their non-conference, so pretty good scheduling for Iowa State there. Any G5 teams towards the top? So Navy is our one G5 team that we have in the top 25. They are currently 6-0. One thing that these teams are going to run into is that they're going to have to schedule power conference teams in the non-conference because there's not that many group of 5 conferences. So it might be a season or a sim where we see a lot of these teams jumping up from the bottom, like from outside of the top 12 with the automatic qualifier. Let's look at our conference standings here. So we actually have some contenders here. Delaware, their first season in FBS, they are 8-0, running the conference. Let's see, can they make a run towards the end here? So Liberty is next week. We play them at home in week 12. They have a Wake Forest game, which is probably going to be where they lose if they do lose. That's technically their only. UTEP is technically no, it's not a power conference. Louisiana Tech was a power conference game. So this is their second power conference game of the year. Could Delaware be a team that makes it in? That's not one of the teams that I would expect to see up. So we have some interesting things going on. We'll see if those teams that we see at the top that have kind of had loaded schedules like BYU, LSU, Iowa State, if they drop down towards the end, or if it's the other way around, or if we see some of these teams that are in the smaller G5 conferences actually jump up. Okay, so we went 6-6. We're in a bowl game for sure. Navy is number 17 in the country. They have this Army-Navy game. Are they also in the conference championship game? They are also in the American Conference Championship game. So Navy looks like the most likely to be the G5 participant, but they have 2 games left, so we'll see what they can do. UTSA, out of the Pac-12, also has a really good chance. They're 8-4 and a top 20 team. That gives you an idea of how rough things are kind of towards the bottom. We did see BYU drop quite a bit. They were number 5. They lost 3 of the final probably 4 or 5 games. I didn't see exactly where they were at. I think they were 7-0. So they lost 3 of their final 5 games in the Big 12. Texas Tech jumped up. They continued to win. They're number 1 in the country. We get Indiana, Oregon in the Big 10. Georgia and Oklahoma in the SEC. Interesting. Okay. So there's a lot of teams we're not seeing here. And then we have Miami, Louisville in the ACC championship game. So let's look at the top 25. Really, it's Navy or UTSA. Navy wins out. They got it. UTSA is sitting there if Navy loses to either Army or Tulsa to take that 5th spot. But the top 25 is going to have a lot more information because there was a lot of teams that weren't in the top or in the conference championship game. So Penn State was not in a conference championship game. Nebraska was not in a conference championship game. Ole Miss was not in a conference championship game. Missouri was not in a conference championship game. A&M was not in a conference championship game. UNLV in the Big 12 was not in a conference championship game. They're probably going to drop out, which is unfortunate. Damn, UNLV is crazy in the first season for whatever reason. They got a win over us. So the loss to TCU and the loss to Arizona State early on in the season. And then the 1-point loss to Arizona is going to be the reason that they don't make it into the college football playoff in their first year in the Big 12. The 1-point loss to Arizona is the reason they won't make it in. They lost by a total of like 19 points. Yeah, 8, 10, 1, 19 points. And the 1-point loss to Arizona is going to be the reason they're going to rue having Arizona come to UNLV, which is cross-state matchup, I guess, right? Don't really think about that, but that could be a rivalry at some point. That's going to suck for UNLV because either Navy or UTSA are going to take that final spot unless... What are they hoping for here? They're hoping for Louisville, I think, is the top-ranked team or lowest-ranked team above them in a conference championship game that could help them. So if Miami can crush Louisville, maybe that gives UNLV a chance at staying in, but they're probably going to drop out. That is unfortunate. Let's go to the bracket. Okay, John Mateer wins a Heisman in the first year. That is what generally happens. What bowl game are we going to? The famous Idaho Potato Bowl against top 25 Hawaii. Good first season for Sam Houston. We have a chance at, I guess, a bowl victory, a big bowl victory at that. Let's look at what this bracket looks like. So Louisville did get crushed. Buffalo is a team that actually jumps up. So that means that Navy lost and UTSA must have lost. UNLV does not end up getting in. BYU, whoa, okay. So our automatic qualifiers are Oregon, Miami, Georgia, BYU, and Buffalo. So UNLV got jumped by 3 teams. Georgia's number 13, BYU's number 21, Buffalo's number 23. That was not what we were expecting. That means that Texas Tech lost. Who was the SEC conference? Oklahoma lost to Georgia, and Indiana lost to Oregon. Oregon ends up getting the number 1 seed out of that. That's crazy. Let's look at these conference championship games. And that means that Navy had to also have lost at least one of those games with them. Yeah, Navy and UTSA must have had. So Navy lost 16-9 to Tulsa. UTSA got killed by Oregon State, who didn't even make a bowl game. I don't think that conference championship loss will get them into a bowl game, or win will get them into a bowl game. So that's crazy. Hawaii could have jumped up into it because Buffalo's number 23. So Hawaii, that's crazy. Basically, unranked team came in. Buffalo winning by 7 in the MAC championship game got them in. Damn. Interesting. 3 teams jump in to the rankings off of the conference championship game automatic qualifier. All right, so first round we have Penn State versus MAC champion Buffalo. Winner will take on Texas Tech in the second round. Ole Miss versus Missouri in an all-SEC matchup. Winner takes on Oregon in the Rose Bowl. BYU, the Big 12 champion, will take on Oklahoma on the road. Winner will take on Indiana in the Cotton Bowl, and then Nebraska, an at-large team, will take on SEC champion Georgia, with the winner taking on Miami in the first round. So we get 1 MAC. We get 1, 2, 3, 4 Big 10 teams. We get 2 Big 12 teams, and then we get 1 ACC team, and 1, 2, 3, 4 SEC teams in the first year. No teams that we moved made it into the playoff in the first year. UNLV was the closest one, but no teams that got moved made it in the first year. So we lost the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, but we shouldn't have been playing against Hawaii. Hawaii is supposed to play in the Hawaii Bowl every year unless they're in the playoff or a BCS Bowl back in the day. So not sure why we ended up playing Hawaii, but either way, 6-7 in the first year for the Bearcats. All right. Penn State gets a big win over Buffalo, who probably shouldn't have been in the playoff. 35-7. It's Texas Tech, Penn State in the second round. Missouri gets a big win over Ole Miss. It's Oregon, Missouri in the Rose Bowl. Oklahoma and Heisman Trophy winner John Mateer win by 7 over BYU. BYU couldn't quite keep the run alive. They go to the second round against Indiana, and then Nebraska gets a 3-point win over Georgia. They go on to the second round against Miami. So the 3 automatic qualifiers that jumped up in all lost. Georgia and BYU were close. Buffalo was obviously way farther away, but they weren't even ranked going into conference championship game week. So that makes sense. The only upset that we get is in the 8-9 matchup. Then we have all of the Big Ten teams get into the second round. 2 are already there. 2 move on. We have 2 SEC teams lose in the first round. And then, of course, our G5 team. All right, we have 3 former or current Big 12 teams in the semifinal. Texas Tech gets the win 49-27. They were the number 1 team going into the final week. They lost to BYU in the Big 12 championship game. They move on to the semifinal where they take on Missouri, who just beat Oregon 59-57 in a high-scoring 100-plus point Rose Bowl. I would say the highest scoring Rose Bowl of all time. So it's Missouri, Texas Tech, and an old school Big 12 matchup in the Peach Bowl. Then we have Miami, who gets a win 31-30 over Nebraska. We almost had 4 former Big 12 teams, former or current Big 12 teams in the semifinal. If Nebraska could have pulled that off, that was a rematch. I forgot to point that out. That's a rematch of the 2001 BCS National Championship game. Oklahoma wins by 7 over Indiana. They will take on Miami in the Fiesta Bowl. That was not a BCS National Championship game, but those teams were both good in the early 2000s. So 2 versus 6 in the Fiesta Bowl, 4 versus 9 in the Peach Bowl. We have the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 all in the semifinal. And it's Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. Texas Tech gets the 1-point win over Missouri in the Peach Bowl. Oklahoma gets a 21-point win over Miami. So 4 versus 6. Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. Miami is denied the home game, the second home game of the 3 in the playoff in Miami. It's Texas Tech versus Oklahoma for the national championship. Big 12 versus SEC for the big one. And Texas Tech gets the win in the first year, 29-10, big-time win over Oklahoma. They had just one blemish, which was the conference championship game, which probably got them a better path to the national championship. I don't know. 4 is not an easy path because you have to play 5 in the second round. Either way, Texas Tech gets the win. Big 12 takes the lead in best conference, which they rarely win that. So we'll see if this change gets the Big 12 the best conference, because they did get some good teams added with Boise State. We'll see. But they take the lead. Texas Tech takes the best lead team and takes the lead in the best team. And let's go to next year. Another rough start for the Bearcats. We're 3-5. We're seeing a lot of similar teams. USC was kind of right on the outside looking in last season. A lot of these teams we see up there. Alabama is new. SMU is new. Clemson didn't make the playoff, but we saw them up there last year. BYU, of course, got in at the end. These Arizona schools that ruined UNLV's time last year are up there, but we see Memphis in the Big 12. So the Big 12 has had 2 teams that have come in from the outside that have had success in the new conference, with Memphis this year and UNLV last year. We'll see if Memphis can do what UNLV didn't do. It looks like they're going to have a chance to do that here early on. So they had the loss to TCU early on, the loss to top 10 Baylor. So total of 11 points so far. This is a big game. If Memphis can get this win against Arizona State, they should be able to get into the playoff, even if they don't make it to the Big 12 championship game, which there's a logjam at the top of the Big 10 with them only having 2 losses and being 9th. So this is a huge game for Memphis. It's a nationally televised game, if you can see that there. So that's going to be an interesting one. We'll see how that turned out at the end of the season. North Carolina is also up there, which is interesting. Again, this is stacking the big conferences with lower-end teams, so that's one thing. 6-2 Hawaii is ranked in the top 25. Big loss at Arizona State. Only lost by 2 to Oklahoma State. I'm not sure why they would be their top-ranked team. Maybe just because of where they started at the beginning of the season, based off of where they finished last year, but that's interesting. Let's look at what Conference USA looks like. We had an 8-0 team last year at this point. Nobody at that point here. Let's just take a look around and see what's going on. Tulsa could potentially be one of those teams. East Carolina, 7-1. Only one non-conference loss at App State, who also could be one of those teams that's up there. They've got a couple big games here. This is a big American game to decide who's going to make it to the conference championship game. So we could see East Carolina as one of those teams fighting for a playoff spot. Let's see. Conference USA already looked at MAC. This is the representative we got last year was Buffalo. They could be up there again at 7-2. Otherwise, maybe not. Hawaii is our leader in the clubhouse right now. UTSA was up there as well at the end of last season. Oregon State played spoiler there. Damn, the Pac-12 sucks. Damn. They have only 8 teams, and 6 of them have 3 or less wins. And then the Sun Belt, App State, I would say, has a big win here, so maybe they could be the one in it. But not super powerful from the G5 so far. Let's go to the conference championship games. All right, went 5-7. That might be working toward us getting fired here. I'm actually going to use the points. I just want to see us get something going in the final season, so I'm going to upgrade our coach here. So everybody else is getting upgraded. Rough scene for the G5 here. So we have a couple really good matchups in the top end conference championship games. Texas Tech and Baylor. Texas Tech, of course, is our defending national champion. They're number 2. Could very well get another first-round bye going into this season. Oklahoma is our defending runner-up. They could be looking at getting a first-round bye going into this season. They have to get through undefeated Alabama to get there. USC is going to get in for the first time. They're undefeated so far. Washington could jump in. This is a classic Pac-12 conference championship game that is being played in the Big 10. Louisville also was in the ACC championship game last year. They lost and got knocked out of the playoff. Clemson was not in the playoff last year. They could win and get in. Both teams are on the edge of getting knocked out as well, because we're going to have at least one team jump up from the bottom Well, we're probably only going to have one team jump up, but we're going to have one team jump up from unranked to get an automatic qualifier because none of the G5 conferences have a ranked team in their conference championship. So let's try to figure it out. Liberty's 9-3, Colorado State's 9-3. No 9-3 there. Bowling Green's 9-3. East Carolina and Tulsa. This is probably the American champion is probably the one that gets it, but Colorado State and Liberty could also be in the running depending on how it goes down. And our top 25 gives a little bit. So Oregon, Arizona, LSU are the ones that are on the bubble there. Arizona is a team we do not often see in the playoffs, so it would be good to see them get in. Arizona State must have lost. What is the Arizona State game called? Territorial Cup. They lost the Territorial Cup and dropped out. That's probably one of the biggest Territorial Cup games ever. They got that win over Memphis earlier in the season by 1. Memphis then drops out because they're 9-3. So 2 years in a row, the Arizona schools knock out one of the schools in the Big 12 that has come up from the G5 and had a chance to get into the playoff. Boise State was also on the edge. Did they lose to an Arizona school? They lost to Memphis, Oregon earlier on in the season, and they lost to Arizona by 3 on the road. Arizona's going to get in. Boise State's going to, and Memphis are both out. That is a very interesting storyline in the Big 12. Very weird storyline, but a very interesting storyline indeed. So Washington winning could spoil the party for Arizona because we're going to get one other team. LSU is almost essentially out at this point unless there's some changing around there. Yeah, these are the two schools that would have been the most interesting to see get in from the Big 12. Maybe one of these schools will get in from the Big 12 this final season. Memphis, Boise State, UNLV. Don't remember the last team that we added in there, but let's go take a look. Let's see if one of those G5 teams can jump up from the Big 12. North Texas is the other team. Maybe North Texas can. If they have Mestamaker, maybe they can make a run in the final season. UNLV dropped to 1-11 after almost being a playoff team last year. So the Big 12 is there to be had. They also have the conference. They also have the defending national champions. So the Big 12 might be the most interesting and the best conference in our video so far. Let's see what the bracket looks like. Ty Simpson gets the Heisman Trophy. They might have been the number 1 seed. They were undefeated going into the SEC championship game at number 4. So they might have been the best team in the country. He threw for 4,000 plus yards and 40 plus TDs. So that is a pretty good Heisman Trophy candidacy. Yes, so East Carolina is the team that makes it in. We do also get Arizona in. We get Louisville and we get Baylor in. So we get some different teams in. Arizona and East Carolina are the two newest teams. This is a pretty good playoff. I'm pretty happy with how this all turned out. Texas Tech, our defending national champion, is the number 1 seed. From there, East Carolina versus Oklahoma. They're the national runner-up. Oklahoma, East Carolina came in from being unranked. I bet they got ranked after the win because they were 11-2, but they were unranked going into the conference championship game. That's 2 straight seasons. We've had an unranked J5 team come in after the conference championship game week. Winner will take on Louisville, who is the ACC champion, and the Cotton Bowl. Baylor, who lost the Big 12 championship game to Texas Tech, will take on Clemson, who lost the ACC championship game to Louisville. The winner will take on Texas Tech in the Peach Bowl. Georgia makes it in for the 2nd straight season. They will take on Arizona, who's in for the first time. Arizona has played spoiler to 2 separate Big 12 teams, making it to the playoff from the G5 so far. The winner will take on Alabama in the Fiesta Bowl. Alabama has a Heisman Trophy winner. They're 13-0. Oregon and Penn State in an all-Big Ten matchup takes on the Big Ten champion. The winner takes on the Big Ten champion, USC, who also comes in undefeated. So we have 2 undefeated teams coming into the playoff. We have our defending national champion as the number 1 seed. We have our defending runner-up as the number 5 seed. We could see a national championship game rematch in the semifinal. We also have 3 Big 12 teams, 2 SEC teams, 3 SEC teams, Oklahoma. We have 3 Big 10 teams. We have 2 ACC teams and 1 team out of the American. Very balanced playoff. Very interesting storylines, new teams. Texas Tech could take best team in the video. Big 12 is very much in the running for best conference in the video, which is very interesting. Big 12 does not have a good showing in the first round. Arizona loses big. Baylor loses by 10 plus. So Texas Tech is carrying the mantle. They've already won 1. If they win again, Big 12 and Texas Tech nail down best conference. But we have some other conferences with something to say. Oklahoma gets the win over our G5 representative by 22. They will take on Louisville in the Cotton Bowl in the 4-5. We had chalk all the way down. Texas Tech and Clemson in the Peach Bowl in the 1-8, Alabama, Georgia in the 3-6 in the Fiesta Bowl, and then USC will take on Penn State after they win by 4 over Oregon in the All Big Ten matchup. It's an All Big Ten matchup in the Orange Bowl between USC and Penn State. So, 2 Big Ten teams are in the quarterfinal, 3 SEC teams, 2 ACC teams, and 1 Big 12 team. The Big 12 gets stonewalled here. We thought they were on their way to being one of the best conferences, but Texas Tech loses in the quarterfinal by 14 to Clemson. They will take on Oklahoma, last year's runner-up, after they get past Louisville by 1. So it's 5-8 in the Rose Bowl. Alabama keeps their undefeated season alive. They win by 24 over Georgia in an all-SEC matchup. Penn State kills USC's undefeated season by 7. So it's Penn State, Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in the 3-7, 5-8 Oklahoma and Clemson in the Rose Bowl. 2 SEC teams. SEC is probably looking to take the lead here if they can get a national championship because they had the runner-up last year. But Clemson, Penn State are looking to take that out. I don't know how else to say that. Take that out. Alabama has an undefeated season and the Heisman Trophy winner, so they could take they would probably tie for best team in the video because they have the Heisman, the undefeated season, but Texas Tech made it 2 years in a row and had a first-round bye 2 years in a row, as well as a national championship. We do get the All-SEC National Championship, so they're going to take the lead in the best conference. Oklahoma wins by 10. They could take the lead as the best team because they were runner-up last year. If they get the win this year, they'll take the lead as the best team. Alabama would tie with Texas Tech as the best team because they had the Heisman, but Texas Tech has the 2 appearances, so maybe Texas Tech would even have one step above team-wise, but they won by 10 as well. So it's Alabama, Oklahoma for the national championship in Vegas. And Alabama gets the win. Always a bridesmaid, never the bride for Oklahoma. They lose by 2 to Alabama. Alabama gets the undefeated season, Heisman Trophy winner. SEC takes the lead. We've got Texas Tech and Alabama tied at the top for the best team. All to play for in the final season. Can the Big 12 get one of these interesting teams in? One of the Boise State, UNLV, Memphis, North Texas into the playoff this year? Can they get denied again by Arizona school? Can Texas Tech get another championship? Can the SEC get another championship? There's a lot of things to play for. And can we get a ranked G5 team that makes it to the playoff going into the conference championship game? All to see in this final season. I also just upgraded Sam Houston's offensive line rating for our coach here so we can maybe get some kind of wins for Sam Houston. They've been kind of teetering around. Maybe they can be the top 25 G5 team. The upgrades didn't help. Sam Houston is 3-5. Not a great start. USC and Washington, last year's our Big Ten championship participants, are both in the top 2 of the country. Arizona State, who has been a thorn in the side of these up-and-coming Big 12 teams, is a top 5 team. We've got Miami in the top. They were in the first year, but they didn't make the playoff last year. Nebraska, North Carolina, TCU. Got a couple new teams up here. Pitt, of course, toward the end of the run. Texas Tech is up there. Last year's champion, Alabama, is not in the top 25. We've got Memphis making a run towards the top again. They're 7-2. Don't tell me they've lost. So they lost to TCU. That's been a common theme for these teams. They lost to Colorado. They don't have a game against an Arizona school. So could they potentially get in? They'd have to beat Texas Tech to get in. But there is a chance for Memphis to make it up. That's what we're really hoping for, is that Memphis can make a run in there. Colorado also could make a run in there. They are currently 6-2. So we could see that happen. That's the most interesting storyline is Memphis right now. But the Big 12 is also an interesting storyline because Arizona State's one of the better teams in the country. Never have I seen Arizona State win a national championship game. So that would be interesting. Big non-conference matchup coming up between Washington and Auburn, which is a crazy game to think about. 2 versus 10. We also got an in-conference matchup, 3 versus 7. Miami, North Carolina at Miami. Nebraska also has Ohio State, who's number 14 in the country, coming there. So this is a big week. Even LSU, Georgia is a big game here. And then we have USC and Michigan as well. So a lot of big games here. A lot to still kind of figure out. There are so many teams in these big conferences that there's so much to figure out for the last part of the season. We don't have any G5 teams in the top 25. So let's go take a look at those conference standings and see who has a chance. We're 3-5. Kennesaw State, maybe. They're 6-2. The Americans, where we've seen the last 2. No. American and the MAC was the first season, then the American. East Carolina was last year. They're 7-1. We could see them in again this year if they can keep that run up. Maybe they can get in the top 25 before conference championship game. We saw Conference USA, the MAC. Central Michigan is 8-0. Okay, the MAC has a lot of big names there. We will probably see Central Michigan and okay, so they just got a big win over Ball State, which is big in the conference race. They don't have to play Buffalo for the rest of the season. Does Buffalo have to play Ball State for the rest of the season? They do. They've got Ball State here. So the winner of this game is probably in the MAC championship game. We could see undefeated and a one-loss team in the MAC championship game if Buffalo can take care of business. That might produce our G5 team. The Mountain West is UTEP had 5 losses in the non-conference. So Air Force and Hawaii have a chance. The Pac-12, UTSA has kind of fumbled around it, but maybe they can do it this year. They're better than they have been. They got a couple 5-win teams here, but man, some of these teams are just doing terrible. And then the Sun Belt, UL Monroe maybe, but probably the MAC or East Carolina. We could see a repeat team in East Carolina or Buffalo making it in, depending on how things go for the rest of the season. Let's go to the conference championship games and see. I went 3-9. Would have been fired if we played another season. Arizona State is the number 1 team in the country. They're facing off against Texas Tech. This unfortunately probably means that Memphis did not make the playoffs, but Arizona State 1 versus 4 in the Big 12 championship game. Big 12 is very much in the running for best conference. That would be a new thing for sure. East Carolina did get into the top 25. Other than that, we have no top 25 teams. Central Michigan fell apart at the end of the season, it looks like. This is a rematch which Ball State probably won the first time based on those rankings. So this could be the secondary thing if East Carolina doesn't take care of business against FAU for that final spot. Yeah, I don't think that these other teams are going to be able to jump up. Maybe Hawaii, because they're 10-2. These teams are both 10-2. So maybe Hawaii is the other one that could potentially jump up if, for whatever reason, East Carolina takes a tumble. Duke could also mess things up for bubble teams, being number 22. Missouri is a bubble team, so they could also mess things up for the bottom teams in the 10, 11, 12 spot if they get a win. Could be that we have 3 teams jumping in, or maybe Missouri wouldn't jump in, but at least based on going into conference championship game standings. Let's see what the top 25 tells us that we're missing. Not much. USC had a tough loss at the end of the season, probably to UCLA, who jumps into the 12 spot. So that is an interesting game, right? It must have been to UCLA. Yes, they lost by 14. So UCLA could potentially move up, but we'll see. They should be ahead of USC. I'm not sure. But again, it could be a Miami-Notre Dame thing where they will move them around, but we'll see what happens. TCU most likely gets in. Anything interesting? Memphis did not take care of business. So Memphis didn't take care of business. That's why we don't see them up there. None of those Big 12 teams ended up making a run towards the top, which sucks. But just adding them to the conference might have strengthened the Big 12 enough to end up winning best conference because they got 2 teams in the top 4, 2 teams that are almost certainly in the playoff. So we'll see if they can take care of business in the playoff and maybe get another national championship. It would be very surprising to see Arizona State pull that off, but we'll see. Bryce Underwood to Clemson. The pipeline is strong for whatever reason. Bryce Underwood ends up at Clemson a lot. 32 touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards passing. Not a great season, but I think they made it into the playoff, so that helps with that. Let's see if they did. So Buffalo gets in for their second time. That is an interesting wrinkle in this thing. They are also unranked again this time. So Buffalo was the one that gets in. That means that East Carolina lost. So, okay, Buffalo 2 times, East Carolina once. Kind of new teams, but we do see those teams make it in every once in a while. Buffalo will take on Washington in Seattle in the first round. Winner takes on Miami in the Fiesta Bowl. USC and Texas Tech will face off in the first round. Texas Tech, of course, is our first-year national champion. We do not see Alabama in here, so Texas Tech is the only national champion that's in. They could potentially get best team and best conference with a win this year. They will have to go through their conference champion winner against Arizona State in the Sugar Bowl if they do beat USC in the first round. TCU is another Big 12 team, so that's 2 years the Big 12 has had 3 teams. TCU will take on Indiana in the first round. Winner takes on Georgia in the Peach Bowl. Penn State and Florida will face off in the 7-10 matchup with the winner taking on Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. So Big 10 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. The Big 12 has 3 teams. The SEC has 2 teams. ACC has 1 team, and the MAC has 1 team. Their second team in the video. Well, second time Buffalo has made it in this video. They're the best G5 conference. The Big 12 gets 2 wins in the first round. I really think that they're going to get best conference in the video. Texas Tech wins by 11 over USC. Unfortunately, Arizona State and Texas Tech have to face off in the quarterfinal, but still, we get 3 Big 12 teams into the quarterfinal. TCU beat Indiana by 2. They'll take on Georgia in the Peach Bowl. Again, unfortunately, they have to play Georgia in the Peach Bowl, but 3 teams from the Big 12 make it into the second round. Nobody else has that many teams in the second round. We've got 2 SEC teams. Florida gets the win over Penn State by 5. They'll take on Ohio State. Georgia, of course, was already there. The other Big 10 team that makes it in is Washington, who gets a 27-point win over Buffalo, so we don't get any G5 victories. Of course, that was going to happen because we took a lot of the best teams out of the G5, but we still see Buffalo make it in twice. So Miami, Washington in the Fiesta Bowl. This is the 1990 national championship that we should have had because they split the national championship. So the winner of this gets the national championship. It's not going to be the Huskies. And then we have that all Big 12 matchup in the Sugar Bowl. So the SEC has the championship and the 2-time runner-up. They could potentially get knocked out. The Big 12 will at least make it to the semifinal. Right now it's the Big 12 and the SEC in the top. The Big 10 has not, I don't think, made it to a semifinal yet. And the ACC has made it to a semifinal. Or no, they did make it to a semifinal last year with Penn State. But only 1 team has made it. The ACC has had a couple teams. And the SEC, of course, has that win. So all to play for here. This is a big round to see who's going to win best conference. Okay, I think that the Big 12 might have just locked down best conference. They got 2 teams in the semifinal. The SEC is still alive because Florida gets the win over Ohio State. The Big 10 has been terrible this video. Miami gets the win over Washington. So it's Texas Tech, Miami in Miami for the semifinal. And then TCU, Florida in the Cotton Bowl for the other semifinal. 10 versus 11, 4 versus 8. So 1 bye team made it through with Miami. Arizona State couldn't quite make that run. That would have been the most interesting national champion. TCU is still a very interesting national champion. We don't see that. I don't think I have seen that ever. The other 3 teams we have definitely seen. So, best conference really comes down to, it can be decided in the bottom semifinal. It can be decided in the bottom semifinal. If TCU gets the win, it's the Big 12. If Florida gets the win, the SEC is in the running for it as well. Texas Tech also has a big load on their back. I think that Texas Tech locked down best team by virtue of making it to the semifinal. Yes, they did, because they're the only team that has won a national championship that's won 3 times. Georgia would have been the only team that could have, or that's been in the playoff 3 times. Georgia was the only team that could have taken best team from them. They lost by 1 point to TCU in the Peach Bowl. So Georgia is then out. Texas Tech gets the best team in the video. Now, can the Big 12 wrap up best conference in the video in this semifinal with TCU getting a win? It doesn't happen. It's all to play for in this final game. Texas Tech gets the win by 6 over Miami. They go to New Orleans, where they're going to take on Florida, who gets the win by 6 in the other semifinal over TCU. So the Big 12 still has to rely on Texas Tech at the end of this to get the win over 14-1 Florida. Are they going to be able to make that happen? Or is the SEC going to take best conference in the video after such a strong showing by the Big 12? Can the Red Raiders come through in the Superdome for the conference? And they fall short, 31-28. Florida gets the win. The SEC takes the best conference. Texas Tech still gets the best team in the video. They could have had 2 national championships. They could have been from the best conference. Arizona State making a run there at the end, getting the number 1 seed is great. TCU getting to the semifinal from the 11 seed is great, but they end up falling short. A total of 9 points to Florida at the end. Florida doesn't win by double digits at all. They win by 5, then 2, then 6, then 3, and they win the national championship. They had a point differential of 16, and they end up winning the national championship game in a 4-game run in the playoffs. That's the video. Very interesting to see all those 20 teams put together. I'm going to try to do some tournaments where I sim them in play now games. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that, but we're going to get some different kind of videos. Probably going to get the first one this weekend, so keep an eye out Saturday or Sunday for those videos. But thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow with a new one.